Okay, hey, we're back once again. It's the weekend, so I get an opportunity to actually work on some stuff over the weekend. So this time we're going to be looking at some stuff and comparing some of the new stuff that just recently came in. As you guys know, we recently just received our new package. With that came some valves, big bore kit, some bearings, things like that. But what I want to look at this time is a closer in-depth look at valves. We kind of talked about it a little bit before. Previously, where's that packaging at? It's over there. Well, previously we looked at the valves and looked at these right here. And with that, we really didn't talk too much about it. So I had a chance to kind of chit chat a little bit more about it. And what I'm finding is that they're very similar to what I actually already have, which is kind of cool. Now, these are they're a bimetal valve, so it's a DV8 stainless with a hardenable metal stem. Obviously, you want a hard stem. There's a lot of force that's going through there, and with that, you want something that's going to be able to handle the repeated abuse of transmitting all that power, specifically from the camshaft. But with that, what is all that noise out there? Interesting. Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, with that, obviously the advantage of a stainless steel valve is that one, it's corrosion resistant, and on top of that, hopefully it resists buildup a little bit more than you typically would see. So we're also going to look at some springs. The ones that I received in the head from NMW, they say are supposed to be heavier duty springs. So I guess we're just going to use our fingers to check that, I guess. I don't know. I don't have like a means of like measuring force between the two. But I feel like we should be able to easily figure that out. So with that being said, let's take a look and let's look at some weights. So right here, what we have is the new NMW stainless valve. This is the stainless valve that you can get from Gray Area KTM, and this is an OEM valve. Now, right at the bat, what I can already see is that this valve, these are both friction welded together is what it looks like. I have a magnet here. Oh, is this interesting? Hold on. Let's check something real fast. Is it the same construct? Okay. I wonder. This came out of the NMW's head that I received. Let me check one of my other valves real quick. Give me one sec. All right, things will multiply a little bit. So, in no particular order, let's just go over this a little bit. Here's a first gen valve, second gen valve, the new NMW valve, and then we have the valve from Gray Area KTM. Over here we have my original first gen valve springs. This is NMW's valve springs, and then I have another set of valve springs here in the back. Ignore the fact that it's dirty. It did not come into the engine that way. Keepers up here, or I guess collars to some people. This is the one from Gray Area KTM, NMW, and then we have the one that came out of Gray Area, the other Gray Area KTM that I have, the head. Sorry, this is the NMW one. I think this is just OEM one. This is one of my original OEM ones to compare between the two, and pretty sure those are just factory. So let's look at some weights real quick. So first of all, let's move the coffee out of the way. And I've already got this zeroed. This is the Gray Area KTM. So 27 grams. It might be a little lighter if it was cleaned. As you can see, it's a little. Oh wait, I'm sorry. OEM Duke version 1. A little dirty. Maybe that put it towards the center. Okay, 28. This is a second gen valve. 28 grams. Here is the gray area KTM. 29. And then we have NMW stainless. 27. Now, here's what I noticed about all of these. Is that all 4 of these are the same construction and some capacity. I don't know what KTM uses. These 2 KTM valves on the side here, though, those ones are of similar construction. So, to my surprise, stainless on the bottom, or could be something else, non-magnetic. I don't have the specs for these. So these 2, there's a higher probability that they're stainless as well, with magnetic steel stems. This one right here, NMW, same thing. EV08 or EV8 stainless, and then we have a hardenable steel on top. And I don't know what gray area KTM has, but the gray area KTM valve, once again stainless, and a steel shaft as well. Now, one thing of note, and I'm going to zoom in. So if we look here, if I can get it to focus, there's the collet. That's where the, well, that's where the shims lock in. Okay. Appears to be similar in size. Let's line this up. This is the OEM valve with the NMW one. So they appear to be similar. Now this one over here is different. This is the one from gray area KTM. And what I'm seeing is that it's bigger. It's a bigger groove. I don't know if that's a good thing, or if that could potentially lead to the valve shifting or not being positioned quite the same if these lock in differently. Let me put a shim on there, or a collar on there, and okay. So if we hold this on top, you can actually see it kind of move a little bit. That's interesting to me. Hold on, right there. There's some movement in that because it's not quite the same. Let's look at the OEM now. OEM is solid. Way less movement, way less wiggle room. Let's check the NMW valve. Okay. I would say there's a little bit. It didn't feel as locked in on the OEM one. Let's try this again. Let me get the feel real quick. Yeah, that feels really, I guess there's a little play in there. A little up and down. So, it's fairly similar. But that one from, yeah, it's got a little bit more. A little bit more. But the gray area KTM one definitely has a lot bigger of a gap. And I'm not sure if that's by design, but that definitely could potentially lead to some issues. Okay, now looking at these are a couple of valves as well. KTM Gen 1, and we have our Gen 2 intake valves. These are all exhaust valves, by the way. And then we have our springs. I'm just going to do this by hand. Sorry, everybody. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have like a spring gauge or anything. Oh, okay. All right. There's something there. First of all, how do these stack up? So, NMW, OEM, slightly higher stack height, just slightly. If we look at the coils, these are definitely thicker coils. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Definitely thicker coils on this one. And I will tell you, definitely a lot more pressure required for these. These ones are definitely stiffer. Without a doubt, a lot stiffer than OEM. Let's try these smaller ones. Okay. And this one. Ooh. Okay, so the smaller NMW spring feels like it's a little bit easier to compress. Yeah, it is, than the OEM one. Interesting. So the larger OEM spring is weaker than the NMW larger spring. However, the OEM spring, the smaller one, is stronger than the NMW spring, the smaller one. So that's interesting to see between the two. These are NMW springs are supposed to be a lot heavier. Oh, I didn't check my first gen springs. Oh, okay, hold on. Let's check that real quick. First gen spring. Yeah, NMW spring still, the smaller one still feels the softest out of all of them. So these two springs are definitely a lot different than the NMW one. So, all right, let's do some weights. So we know already that the NMW valve is lighter than the OEM valve and the gray area KTM valve. Let's check some spring weights. This right here is the NMW spring set. Both springs, 39 grams. Here is the OEM, 35 grams. So spring set's heavier, which would make sense because it takes more force, so, and these springs definitely look thicker. Now let's look at these retainers. 6 grams and NMW 4 grams. OEM 8 grams. So 2 grams difference between the OEM to gray area and then from gray area to NMW. So let's put an entire set on here now. And let's see the weight of everything together as a set. I'm not going to do keepers. We'll just do that. 71 grams. Let's swap this out. We're going to do gray area KTM with OEM valve and KTM gray area KTM collet. 69, so 2 grams lighter. And then we'll do an OEM setup too. With that, coming in at 70. So technically, second place, gray area KTM's first place, and let's remeasure this one again. Okay, and it's 71. So, yeah, first place is going to be, this is in terms of weight. Gray area KTM's in terms of weight, first place, OEM second place, and then NMW is third place. Now, we say, you know, we're talking about weights and we're talking about grams. Like, that's a very small amount. And then understand, while and the NMW setup is heavier. It's also because it has a heavier and obviously fairly thicker spring. I think the weight is obviously going to be because of the spring weight difference. In fact, let's check this mainspring and see what the weight difference is with that. So 29 and 24. So 4 grams heavier. It's that mainspring alone, right? So if you were to, you know what? Let's just run a different combo real quick. So we have, let's see, OEM spring, NMW valve, and the retainer. So 66. All right, so then technically that would be a lighter setup than all of them right now. Really looking for lighter. I'm looking for kind of the heavier spring anyways. If anything, I can always just swap it out a little bit later. But the valves that Gray or NMW has, longer duration cams. But on top of that, the cam profile is a lot different too. Way more lift, everything else like that, generally speaking, so you can prevent valve float. You usually want heavier springs to kind of help with that. So I could opt to do OEM valves, but I know for a fact, since I'm changing things up with the cam profile and everything else, it's going to be better to go with the heavier springs because of that. So even though I'm taking a little bit of weight penalty, because obviously there's that 3 grams times 3, or technically it would be 5 grams, so 20 grams total weight difference for an entire valve train setup. It's more important for reliability, right? And since this isn't exactly a car engine, it revs higher than a car engine. Valve float is always one thing that you have to be concerned about. So I'm going to opt for the heavier valves. And yeah, I think the biggest surprise out of all this, to be honest, is the material composition of the OEM valves. I didn't realize that these valves were a dual metal setup. Oh, you know what? I just realized I made a mistake when I weighed those guys. That 66 grams is with the 2nd gen OEM valve. Let me, God, I gotta get better organized. I can't believe I let that happen. All right, here, this is the gray area, or NMW's version. So 65 grams. So it'd be even less. So we're 24 gram difference, I guess, technically, if that were to run OEM valve or OEM springs. But again, the important thing is making sure we have a reliable setup when it comes to the difference in cam profile. So as much as I have a love-hate relationship with my Daniel Crauer rim camshafts, I'm a little bit, sour about that, because my 1st gen ones, they're supposed to be OEM lift and longer duration, and I think they're definitely longer duration, but like lift wise, I feel like they weren't nearly that great. In fact, I feel like they kind of underperformed in comparison. I think even they realized it, because they released I guess they quietly released a newer version, and the newer version has more lift, more duration, and they kind of addressed some of those performance downfalls, because there was this big claim about how they were making 5 horsepower off of those cams alone and all this other stuff, right? But I don't think anybody was really seeing that. And it's a little bit of a disappointment, at least from my perspective. And now hopefully these new ones will perform a lot better, and then we'll see how that works out. So yeah, so there it is, folks. That's the valve comparison between all of them, right? So 1st gen, 2nd gen, NMW, and gray area. Now we got all that stuff sorted. What I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to weigh everything out, all the parts, mix and match, and try to get all those parts as balanced as possible in terms of weight between all 4, well, I guess between the 2 valves, right? With that being said, I had to work on the new cylinder. I am probably not going to record that. There is a lot of edges to deburr, so I'm going to go through, do a lot of deburring on that cylinder, in anticipation of getting ready for, you know, taking everything apart and then starting to work on it. So that's all we got for now, and we'll see you in the next one.